Hello, and welcome to this general election debate for candidates for Arizona's Corporation Commission. This debate is sponsored by Clean Elections, the state's nonpartisan voter education agency. My name is Nohelani Graf.
And I'm Steve Goldstein. We'll be co-moderating today's debate. And to set the scene for this debate, the Arizona Corporation Commission is responsible for regulating utilities and incorporating Arizona businesses. This year, 3 of the commission's 5 seats are up for election. The way we're sharing this debate is part of a brand new effort to support democracy in Arizona. Thanks to a partnership with the Clean Elections Commission and the Arizona Media Association, we're working to make sure these 2024 debates are the most accessible in Arizona history. That means this debate will air on a long list of local TV stations, radio stations, and digital platforms, including support from local newspapers.
So we have tried to keep the rules simple. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to make an opening statement and 1 minute for a closing statement. Candidates have drawn straws to determine the order. Throughout the debate, we will pose questions to each candidate, allow them to answer, and then make sure the other candidates have a chance to respond. Whenever a question is directed to a specific candidate, only that candidate's microphone will be open. At all other times, every microphone will be open.
No candidates have been given advanced access to any of the questions.
With that, let's introduce the candidates appearing in this debate. We have Elenia Aguilar, Jonathan Hill, Renee Lopez, Leah Marquez Peterson, Joshua Polachek, Rachel Walden. These candidates have been invited to join this debate because they received at least 1% of the total ballots cast in the primary election. And we are using this guideline for all of our general election debates in Arizona this fall. So with that, let's get to our opening statements. Ms. Aguilar, you have the first opening statement, and you have 2 minutes.
Good evening, Arizona. My name is Elenia Aguilar. I am a mother, I'm an advocate, I'm a former school board member, I'm a member of the Central Arizona Water Conservation District Board. I'm running for the Arizona Corporation Commission because families like mine cannot continue to live under this current Republican corporation leadership. This is going to be the coldest summer you'll ever experience. And as we continue to get hotter in Arizona, our rates will continue to increase. We have seen that under the current Corporation Commission, millions of dollars of rate cases have been passed and approved. And this impacts families like mine and families throughout Arizona. Article 15 of our Arizona State Constitution has defined that this role, the most important responsibility, is to ensure that we are getting the best deal possible for our ratepayers, for our Arizonans, and that is not what is happening under the current Corporation Commission. And I want to make sure that I am that voice for the consumers, and I am there to protect all Arizonan consumers and ratepayers. Hola, mi nombre es Elenia Aguilar. Buenas noches. Soy madre, también soy parte de la Mesa Directiva de Conservación de Agua. También soy defensora y estoy aquí porque estoy corriendo para la mesa directiva de la Corporación de Arizona porque familias como la mía y la suya no pueden seguir con los costos que siguen subiendo en las tarifas porque actualmente la corporación, los miembros electos están aprobando tarifas que están aumentando el costo de nuestra electricidad, nuestro gas y todos nuestros costos de utilidades. Y nosotros no podemos vivir así. Tenemos que lograr un cambio y el cambio soy yo. Con tu apoyo podré lograr poder estar en la boleta y ganar nuestra posición para lograr el cambio porque los arizonenses no están siendo protegidos como la Constitución de Arizona lo ha dedicado.
Okay, thank you. Joshua Polachek, 2 minutes for an opening statement.
Thank you, and I want to thank both the Clean Elections and the Arizona Media Association. We are facing a vital election this fall. My name is Joshua Polachek, together with my running mates Elenia Aguilar and Jonathan Hill. We are running to take back the Corporation Commission for the people of Arizona. I spent nearly 20 years in federal service serving the American people overseas. I was a commissioned foreign service officer, and for me, this is really a race about legacy. We are facing monumental decisions over the next 4 to 8 years with our Corporation Commission. We are going to be deciding in the the majority on the Corporation Commission is going to be deciding whether Arizona will be a place where we can raise our families, where we can start small businesses. And under the current Republican majority on the commission, they have not seen a rate increase that they didn't embrace wholeheartedly. We need to make sure that we return the Corporation Commission to its constitutional duty of ensuring that you, the voters, get affordable, reliable, and safe public services. And that is not happening under the current majority. We know that every single time that they've had an opportunity to protect the citizens of Arizona, they have instead sided with the out-of-state corporations. They are taking money out of your pocket and sending it out of our state. We need change. That's why I'm running with Jonathan Hill and Elenia Aguilar for the Corporation Commission this fall. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Leah Marquez Peterson, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. Again, my name's Leah Marquez Peterson. I'm a wife, a mother, a small business owner. I'm running currently for re-election to the Arizona Corporation Commission. I've served on the commission since 2019 and have worked hard during that time for energy reliability at the most affordable rates. I support a balanced approach to energy, and that's with a diverse energy portfolio that would include nuclear and natural gas and solar, wind, hydroelectric, and other types of energy sources. It's important that we have a diverse energy plan. Since serving as chairwoman of the commission, I passed a code of ethics which asked folks and promoted leading with integrity, also utilizing the Clean Elections program to keep the utilities out of our races. It also promoted transparency in campaign financing and dark money. I was also very proud to launch an energy reliability summit to focus on the concerns we're all facing related to California's rolling blackouts and its impact on Arizona utilities. I fought to provide affordable utility rates to all of Arizona, and especially seniors who are on a fixed income. While serving on the commission, I'm proud to have supported a $40 million rebate to TEP and APS customers, voted to not disconnect utility ratepayers for non-payment during the hot summer months, and more recently approved an APS rate case with more than $200 million in rate cuts to that rate case because I was concerned with utility rates. I know that families are struggling. I'm running to ensure that we continue to have energy reliability at the most affordable rates. I'm the only commissioner based outside of the Phoenix area. I live in Tucson, but serve the entire state. I'm also the first Latina to serve in a statewide elected role in the history of our state. I would be honored to continue to serve you on the commission. You can learn more about me at voteforleah.com. Thank you again for listening tonight.
Rachel Walden, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement.
Hi, I'm Rachel Walden. I love Arizona. I've lived here for 39 years. I went to ASU for my undergrad degree and for graduate school. I had a 14-year career in the financial sector. And for 10 of those years, my book of business were large market corporations, and I managed the retirement plans on the regulatory and record-keeping side of things. So I have experience with government legislation, with compliance, and with audits, and how to gain process improvements for administrative workflows and gaining efficiencies in those workflows. I'm a proven fighter. I'm currently on the Mesa School Board. I have prioritized academic achievement, fiscal responsibility, and parental rights. I understand that the role of all government is to uphold the rights of the people. I am running for the Arizona Corporation Commission so that we can put the ratepayer first and prioritize reliability and affordability for now and for future generations. I have the right skill sets and experience that I can deliver results, not excuses. You can learn more about me at my website, electrachelwalden.com. I'd be honored to have your vote this November. Thank you. Mr. Lopez, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity here to come speak to everybody in their homes. So I'm Rene Lopez. I'm a third-generation Arizona native, third-generation Navy veteran. I was born and raised in Mesa, and I discovered in college, in Mesa Community College, my first love language, which was energy. So I ended up getting my degree in nuclear engineering with a minor in direct energy conversion down at the University of Arizona. And the Navy wound up helping me with my college, so I wound up serving 4.5 years in the Navy as a Navy officer, starting off in the nuclear Navy, but transitioning into special operations cryptology aboard submarine platforms. When I left the Navy, I wound up getting a really good job in San Diego, California, working for an oil and gas company called Solar Turbines. So I worked as a project project engineer, became Black Belt Six Sigma, but I did not like the way California was going at that time. So my wife and I and my 2 kids wound up coming back to Arizona and landing in Chandler to finish raising our family. And I did not want to see the Californication that happened in their coming to Arizona. So I wound up getting involved in politics. And so I wound up running a little bit with helping others get elected in state legislature, a lot of statewide propositions. And then in 2014, I wound up running for Chandler City Council. So I was lucky enough to get and earn the votes to serve the Chandler residents for 8 years on the city council. And while there, we lowered the city portion of the property tax bill 7 years in a row. I fought to ensure that we did a proper budgeting and priority-based services so that we continued to lower the cost of service in that city to the point where it had the lowest cost of service of any city in Maricopa County, while still providing services such as parks at every square mile and hiring 28 new police officers. By the time I left the city council in January of 23, again, we had the lowest cost of service in any city, and we also had the lowest crime rate since inception of that city in 1912, with 16,000 residents, which now has 290,000 people. They have a lower cost of service, lower crime rate. So this is what I bring to the table. While I served on the Chandler City Council,
Mr.
I
Lopez,
also
you're
represented AMWA, and hopefully I'll be able to talk more about water later on in the questions. So Rene Lopez for Corporation Commission.
And Jonathan Hill, you have 2 minutes for yours.
Well, good evening, Arizona. My name is Jonathan Hill. I'm running for the Arizona Corporation Commission because we need more technical professionals sitting on the commission. My background is in both engineering and geology. For the last 18 years, I've worked at Arizona State University on the Tempe campus, working on a number of NASA space missions. I was fortunate enough to work on the cute little Mars rover, Spirit and Opportunity, the Mars Odyssey spacecraft, 2 different asteroid missions, and a mission to Jupiter that is launching in 37 days. And I started out on the engineering side of those missions, but over time I really became passionate about the geology work that we were doing on other planets. And so I ended up switching tracks from my master's degree in aerospace engineering to a PhD in geological sciences. And that's the expertise that I hope to bring to the commission, the engineering expertise when it comes to power generation, water distribution systems, but also the geology expertise when it comes to managing our state's precious groundwater resources. I'm also running because we need commissioners who are going to fight for Arizonans, ignore all the partisan nonsense that's going on, and focus on the commission's core mission of protecting ratepayers and keeping our utilities as affordable as possible. How many of you over the last 4 years have seen significant increases in your energy and your water bills? Probably most of you. And that's just unacceptable. It's putting pressure on Arizona families, and it's making it difficult to make ends meet. The commission is currently just simply not working for Arizonans. And so what I hope to bring is the technical expertise to ask the utilities the hard questions and make them accountable to Arizona voters.
Thank you for your time. So with that, we want to get into our questions, and we are going to start with where most voters feel the immediate impact of your position, and that is their wallet and rates. So 3 of the largest utilities in the state implemented increases over the last year between 7 and 9%. One reported record revenue on the heels of that increase. You would be the voice of the people. So, Ms. Walden, I'm going to start with you because you mentioned rates. Do you believe the people think those recent rate hikes were fair?
So, I mean, that's conjecture about what other people think. So I'm going to talk about, what's fair and how rates really work. So you mentioned revenue. So the profit margins and the return on equity in the rates are 2 different financial formulas. So with our rates, a lot of people don't understand that they're historical. So if you think about a company like Walmart, when the cost of business goes up, like if you just give your employees a raise, you've increased the cost of business, they will make adjustments there in their pricing to make up for that cost of business. The utility companies aren't able to do that until they come to the commission to go through the rate making process, which is a very long and expensive process for them to do. So they fund their increases in the cost of business through debt and through investors, and they carry that debt around and sometimes for years. We did have a moratorium on rate increases, so that did kick the can down the road. We can look in the past 10 years, has the cost of services gone up? Have the cost of goods go up? Absolutely. We're all being hit by inflation, but a lot of our utilities have been dragging these expenses around for years. Now it's time to pay the bill.
And so I'll give you a minute, Mr. Polachek, also to respond to that. But also, do you think, since you would be the voice of ratepayers, were those increases fair?
So,
Sorry, next. Thank you.
I think what we've just heard tonight is the inability of our opponents to look you straight in the eye and say, what you're paying is too much. That we should not be seeing record profits with our utilities while we're paying record prices every month with our electricity and gas bills. I will tell you that if you elect the three of us, we're going to make sure that we hold the utilities accountable, that when they try to put record profits instead of what an affordable and fair rate increases, we're going to fight back against that. And you heard tonight that they can't straight up tell you that there's been Republican control for decades on this commission. And look at yourself, look at that bill you get every month. Are you happy with that? That's thanks to the Republicans who've been in control for decades.
Ms. Marquez-Peterson, let me follow up in a more broader sense for this question, and that is what factors, you've been on the commission, what factors do you take into account when deciding whether a rate hike is valid or not? Because we've seen inflation, we've seen middle-class families really being hurt by rate increases. Do you think the rate increases have been appropriate in which cases? And which cases, as you said, do you think they should have been changed?
Right, so the Corporation Commission is constitutionally created, and we must provide just and reasonable rates. We're very aware of that as we're sitting before the 40 to 50 rate cases we see a year. We regulate about 400 utilities, but let's really look at the facts. The facts say in a recent Wallet Hub survey that Arizona is second lowest in the nation when it comes to a combination of electricity, gas, and gasoline bills. You can also look at the fact that our average electricity price is 8% less than the national average. We're looking at data like that. We want to ensure that ratepayers are certainly protected, so we have put a moratorium on disconnection from non-payment during the hot summer months. There are utility assistance programs and payment plans, and we work closely with our utilities in that regard.
Mr. Hill, you have 1 minute to respond to that.
So it's good that you point out that the three major utilities have seen record increases and record profits. Something that got left out in the discussion is our rural co-ops. So they have seen increases of 30, 40, 60%. It is really difficult for these rural communities who are relatively isolated from the rest of the state to absorb these huge increases. And it makes it really difficult for most of them who are on fixed incomes, a lot of retirees, a lot of people who have disabilities, makes it very difficult for them to adjust and absorb those rate increases. And so when you ask, are the rate increases fair, I would say not only are the three large utility increases unfair, but especially these co-op raises are really unfair to the consumers.
Ms. Aguilar, I saw you nod your head. How would you balance then fairness to ratepayers, but also utilities, because that is part of the job, is finding the balance?
Yes, we should have balance. We do need the utilities. They need to make a profit. That I completely understand. What I don't understand is how, the current commission has continued to side with the utilities and not the ratepayers. And that, besides ensuring a safe, reliable grid, that is the most important job. And in order to have balance, you need to really be thoughtful about the process and really think about the consequences, especially the unintended consequences. Who are we impacting the most when we're approving these rate cases? It's our low-income families. It is our families living on fixed income. And the way that you make these decisions is through ensuring that what is provided by your staff, you're reading it and that you're educating yourself and doing your own homework and investigation and asking the questions and including the stakeholders to make these informed decisions. Because at the end of the day, the decisions that are made by this commission are so important to the everyday lives of Arizonans.
And Mr. Lopez, I'd like to give you a minute to respond as well about fairness, but balance.
Yeah, and you hit it. It's balance. Look, having run the fourth largest water district in the state, in our Chandler Water, we had to raise rates. And as I mentioned in my introduction, we still have the lowest cost of service of any city in Maricopa County. But we had to raise our rates. Cost of chlorine is up, 400% since COVID. Cost of people, cost of infrastructure, all the piping, all the steel, everything is going up. But what we can do, and Leah Marquez-Peterson said it rightly, we have to evaluate those rate cases that come in. they removed out of the APS case over $200 million of stuff that did not belong on the backs of the ratepayers. That's what we can do. That's what we can parse out and make sure that the balance between a funded and fully functional utility is not making profits and unduly off of the backs of the ratepayers.
Ms. Marquez Peterson, let's move on to the renewable energy standard, because you've been involved in a recent vote that had overturned the concept of that. It was very controversial a number of years ago when Arizona's Corporation Commission implemented a 15% renewable energy standard. Do you think the state needs to have something like that, or would you rather not?
That's a good question. So when I was appointed in 2019, the commission was in the middle of that debate and that discussion. That 15% renewable energy standard was set in 2006 when the solar industry was really at the beginning. It was highly subsidized. We now look back and see that almost $3 billion in subsidies was paid by residential customers to kind of hold up that solar industry. During this debate in 2019, 2020, we debated whether we should have a certain percentage by a certain year. And after a lot of debate, a lot of thoughtful consideration, we decided no. If we set a certain percent by a certain year, it will cost the ratepayers a lot of extra money. It couldn't even be quantified at the time. So you had a majority of the commission vote no on an energy standard.
But do you think there's any space to have any sort of standard? I understand what you're saying about 2006, but currently?
I don't at this point. We have a diverse energy mix. About 30% of our energy comes from nuclear. We've got about 27% from natural gas. Solar continues to grow dramatically, as does wind and hydroelectric. So we have a very diverse mix now. I say let the market dictate what direction we go. You see large companies also coming to the state, like Google and Microsoft and others, that have those clean energy requirements. You see the utilities growing dramatically. I support the voluntary energy goals, though, that the utilities have set.
Mr. Polachek, 1 minute on that?
Sure. Well, first, I'd like to return to the previous question. None of our opponents were able to answer whether they thought these rate increases were fair. Clearly, the consumers can look at their bills and decide for themselves if they think they're fair. But what Commissioner Peterson is leaving off in the standards that you're talking about is that there was a bipartisan effort by the previous chairman to reform the regulations. There are outdated regulations with the commission that get in the way of the free market. We are talking about regulations from the 1960s and 70s that provide a non-market subsidy to outdated technology. Right now, it is cheaper to be building a clean energy future in our state, but instead we are providing perverse incentives to the utilities to be building infrastructure that we don't need and getting in the way of our clean energy future. There is a possibility of letting the market go free, and I can't believe I'm saying this as a Democrat, but the Republicans on this stage are getting in the way of the free market in regards to energy.
So, Mr. Lopez, sticking with this question and this theme then, in response to that, and you have 1 minute, is there room for the renewable energy standards? Are you with Ms. Marquez Peterson, where there is no room for them?
Well, again, what you're doing is you're choosing your winners and losers there. You're dictating where the energy utilities have to go. Ms. Marquez Peterson, Ms. Walden, and myself, we're in an all above the approach. We mentioned that in some of our openings. We believe we need it all because the level of growth that APS already came out with, Tucson Electric Power already came out with, and SRP, even though they're not regular bus, the amount of growth that's required in order to meet the energy demands in this state are phenomenal. I mean, APS released they need to increase 40% in 7 years. You're not going to be able to do it, just anyone. Nuclear, gas, even though nuclear isn't expanding right now, your clean energy, solar, wind, none of them can do it all by themselves. We need it all because we don't know where the advancements in technology are going to come. We don't know where the prices of gas and oil, coal are going to go. And if we don't have it on the grid, we're not going to be able to take advantage of those cost savings for the ratepayers. And that's who we're here for. We all here, and I have no question that we all are for the ratepayer here, but what we need to make sure is that we're not pigeonholing us into one solution or one path because that leads us down the road of unintended consequences, and California, here we come.
Now, is there a danger then, though, of leaning too much, and I'll send this one for 1 minute to you, Mr. Hill, and you can also respond, to leaning too heavily on natural resources?
Yeah, I think we have to be very careful in Arizona about what type of resources we're using for our energy. Arizona is not known as an oil and gas capital of the country. We are the sunshine capital of the entire country. There is no reason why Arizona should not be running entirely on solar. When you look at states like Nevada, they have implemented solar in a very responsible way. I agree with Mr. Lopez that California has made some mistakes in their implementation of renewable energy, but we can learn from those mistakes and we can prevent them from happening here in Arizona. Also, there's been a lot of talk about the free market. The problem with that is that these companies, these utilities, are monopolies. They are not subject to free market forces. You don't have a choice of who you take your business to. And so it's the constitutional duty of the Corporation Commission to regulate those utilities and to guide them in a way that is beneficial for all of Arizona.
Ms. Walden, let me ask you to follow up on that. The idea that it isn't a pure market because there is a monopoly situation, whether it's TEP or APS.
So while there's monopolies on services, there is competition in the generation. So when the utilities come to us with their integrated resource plan, that's their blueprint for the future, that's when we make them get the all-source request for proposal. There's 40 different sources out there. A lot of the commission is financial reporting, going through the financial reports, making sure we're getting the best deal. So we have the utilities, and it doesn't have to be a forced mandate. It's voluntary, but they all comply. And they get those bids, and oops, there goes my water. So they get those bids, and then we can see, okay, what's the cheapest, what's the best option for our energy solutions? So when we have a mixed portfolio, it's like investing. You don't put all of your eggs in one basket. We have a mixed portfolio. We can hedge against market conditions. Energy prices fluctuate. They fluctuate every day, just like the stock market. We have supply and demand issues. The utilities are making same-day decisions going, are we going to pull from natural gas? Are we going to pull from solar? Are we going to pull from wind? And having that diverse portfolio lets them make choices that they can pick whichever source is generating at the cheapest cost at that time. You know, when we talk about solar being cheapest, I just want to add that the average price for solar paid was 8 cents a kilowatt. Palo Verde generates energy at 3 cents a kilowatt.
Okay, Ms. Aguilar, let me have you discuss that.
Thank you. And just for clarification, I wanted to share that we are also for a diversified portfolio. And with that said, yes, what Ms. Walden just stated is true. But the reality is that we, as mentioned before, we are living in Arizona. We have 365 days of sunshine. We could benefit from, producing energy just in our backyards. And with solar over time, costs would go down. When we're talking about nuclear and other forms of energy, the costs are really expensive. We know that in another state, a nuclear power plant cost $17 billion, and it went over 7 years of the timeline. And that is very costly. And guess who that falls back on, those costs? The ratepayers. So we need to make sure that when we're talking about what is best for the ratepayers, we're considering what does that look like and how does this happen at a long term? We know that expansion of renewables, such as solar and wind, will put Arizona as the green leaders that we are meant to be. And I think that we can get there and we can be leaders of this era and of this country. And that's what we're trying to get to.
So let's stick with that topic of energy supply also, because Arizona is in a region that faces the greatest challenges when it does come to climate. A report just came out that August was the hottest that we've seen so far since records were kept. When you become a commissioner, what are you going to do to help ensure that the energy supply in this state will be viable, especially when the people in the most populated portion of the state do have to increase their energy uses to run the AC during the summer months? How will you ensure energy efficiency? Mr. Lopez, I'm going to give you a minute.
Well, again, it's energy availability that we need, right? And again, we need to stay in our wheelhouse in the Corporation Commission. Again, we're edicted here to make sure that we're fighting for the ratepayer for an affordable and just rate. Okay, and that means that we're not telling utilities on what to do and how to run their businesses. What we are there to is to oversight and make sure that they're running it properly and that they're not, again, putting things on the backs of the ratepayers that are not duly just. So in the end, what we need to do is ensure that we have that diverse portfolio, that we do take it all. Again, wind and solar can be in the mix, but it shouldn't be subsidized. Just like anything else, energy-wise, it needs to be subsidized. That is why when we talk about nuclear, the small modular reactors is a possibility in the next 5 to 10 years, 10, 15. I keep the ball gets kind of get kicked down the road a little bit. But we need it all. And as I mentioned before, that's the only way we're going to be able to keep things affordable for everyone. Because as I mentioned, the growth level that we need in this state, as more data centers come in, as our population grows, and we haven't talked about water yet, but I mean, water is another major impact that requires a lot of power in order to get it into the Central Valley. We need to make sure we have all of that available to us.
Mr. Polachek?
You know, Mr. Lopez, with all due respect, you talked about picking winners and losers. We know under the current Corporation Commission regulations that the utilities know that they can make more money building fossil fuel infrastructure that they expect us to be paying for not just 10 years from now, not just 20 years from now, 50 and 60 years from now. We know that the commission is putting their thumb on the scale. That's why in Nevada, when they opened up their generation market and you saw the free market bloom, they went from about 10% of energy independence to over 50% in less than a decade. And you are seeing in Nevada something that is seen only in one other place in the entire country, and that is rates going down, profitability for the utilities going up, and the pollution rates going down. And that's seen only in one other place in the entire country, and that is the deregulated market in southern Florida. So why are we stuck with these outdated government regulations that provide subsidies to infrastructure we don't need?
Ms. Marquez-Peterson, you want to respond to that?
Yes, I do. So, I mean, I think we need to talk some facts here, respectfully. I mean, Western Resource Advocates came out recently with a report that said that Arizona is 5th in terms of the size of its solar production as compared to other states around the nation. We see incredible growth in solar and battery. We have wind coming in from New Mexico. We are supporting a diverse energy portfolio. But the reality is Arizona continues to grow, whether it's residential growth or we have this long line of data centers and semiconductor industries that want to come to the state, as Mr. Lopez mentioned. We need to prepare for that energy demand, and that is why energy reliability needs to be our #1 factor. We need to realize that if we had rolling blackouts like California, it could be a life or death situation in Arizona. We need to take care of those that are the most vulnerable.
Ms. Walden, 1 minute to respond.
Sure. So in the current commission, they have approved over 6,000 megawatts of solar. So nobody's not doing renewables. But the problem with the solar is that it doesn't dispatch evenly on the grid. We know that renewables are intermittent. And the companies in Arizona, they rely on that reliable power. So when we look at coal, we look at natural gas, our grid was designed so that that energy dispatches at 60 hertz. We get something like solar, it's lost its peak by 4 p.m. So when energy is at its lowest demand, that's when solar's at its highest. When energy is at its highest demand, solar's at its lowest. And so then we risk that we're dropping below that 60 hertz. We're getting the flickering light bulbs. That kind of intermittent power can be billions of dollars and lost productivity for the companies that are here and that want to move here. So we have to have natural gas peaker plants that can be ramped up quickly or ramped down quickly so that we meet that peak demand. We can't afford to have unreliability, and that's what we would have with just a pure green portfolio, because we see it in Texas, we see it in California, we see it in Germany.
Mr. Hill, you want to respond?
Yeah, so something that Ms. Walden is correct about is that solar and other renewable energies tend to peak in the early afternoons, whereas the usage tends to peak in the early evening. Once everyone gets home, they turn on their dishwasher, they turn on their stove. What we need to do is we have to shift that peak, and that's where storage comes in. That's the piece that Ms. Walden left out, is that storage allows us to shift that peak without adding peaker plants. It allows us to shift that peak of energy from the mid-afternoon to the early evening when users need it. And you already see the 3 major utility companies in Arizona moving towards storage. There's been incredible movement in the technology development in that sector, and we're seeing the price point come down drastically. So whereas this was not cost effective even 4 years ago at the last time this commission race was held, now it is cost effective and affordable.
Yeah, thank you. And just to add to what Jonathan just said, going back to your previous question about standards, this is why standards are so important, because they give us a baseline. And during the current commission that approved the standards, this is how we got storage. And that has allowed, like Jonathan stated, for our costs to go lower. And, you know, standards just provide a baseline, and they encourage the utilities to invest in these technologies that we need in order to you know, have more renewable energy. And I think incentivizing them and investing in these technologies is so critical for the future of Arizona and to help reduce costs, because at the end of the day, that is what we are running for. This is the job that we're running for, to ensure that we are lowering costs and that we have a safe, reliable grid. Everyone's mentioned, that we can't just solely rely on solar, which is true. Not right now. We need to talk about a transition and how does that happen and how do we do it in a cautious way that is safe and that is going to benefit all Arizonans.
Okay. Ms. Marquez Peterson, I want to modify the question a bit. One thing, there are a number of public health officials who are concerned that without more renewable energy, whether that's the Corporation Commission's job or not, I'd love you to answer that. There are a lot of public health concerns that there's a lot of air pollution in this state already. In addition to our summers, we have ozone issues. We have all sorts of things that affect public health. Can the Corporation Commission do anything to encourage better public health to the utilities by requiring certain aspects of renewables or cleaner energy?
Right, so I think that certainly the utilities, in terms of the energy that they're bringing onto the grid, can impact the ozone and the environmental impact. However, I think the biggest push towards what's bringing ozone into our air is really vehicles. I think we've seen a lot of electric vehicle work being done federally and being subsidized and different programs coming about. We, in fact, set an electric vehicle roadmap for the state initially. We engage with the charging stations. We talk about policies that relate to the utilities and their charging stations. So I think the vehicle piece, the transportation piece, is a place that the Commission can do further work on it as folks decide to buy electric vehicles. I think what's key, though, is if folks are buying electric vehicles, it is not something that is subsidized by those that do not have electric vehicles. We need to be fair about that effort also.
Mr. Polachek, public health question there?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing up in Mojave a community where there's an expansion of a gas turbine power plant against the will of the community. And that's something that Commissioner Peterson voted on a 4-1 Republican party line vote to approve. The community didn't want it. It did not go through the standard procedures. The site committee, which is supposed to approve these sorts of things, disapproved it. And the Commission, on a party line vote, decided, yep, this is what we're going to do. We don't care what the community wants. We don't care what the site committee, who are the experts that they appoint to make these sorts of decisions and advise on these decisions. They overrode that. I also want to get back to, there's a bit of misinformation coming. She said that we spend $3 billion a year, or $3 billion over the last 20 years in the build out of our clean energy, the part of our grid. We spend $5 billion a year, and you know this, buying out-of-state fossil fuel, coal and gas to power our grid. That $5 billion we'll never see again. We're shipping it off to places like Texas, Pennsylvania, and even fueling the conflicts in the Middle East and Eastern Europe. Okay. Arizona has an opportunity for energy independence. They're getting in the way of that.
Since you directed at Ms. Marquez Peterson, we'll get a chance.
Thank you for the ability to respond.
30 seconds, please.
Thank you. So I think in terms of natural gas peakers and communities not wanting to have those in their backyards, that is really a Planning and Zoning Commission determination that's done at the county level. So that's not something that the Commission is engaging in, and we're listening very closely to county leaders. Related to the solar subsidies, the solar was so expensive in 2006. Arizona wanted to see it done and set that standard in place, and it is a fact that APS and SRP and TEP customers have been paying that subsidy since then. Now the cost of solar is dramatically lower, and so we're in a place where the utilities can engage with renewable solar energy, and it is to the benefit of the ratepayers.
I will point out, though, in regards to rural communities, there is a process right before the Commission hears a case that you have to hold public hearings. But Mr. Lopez, I'll ask you, when you're dealing with rural communities, some who don't have great internet access, and you look at the number of people who go to the meetings versus population size, do you think that communities and smaller rural ones are being heard, and what would you do to ensure that they are?
I think they're being heard in that they have local elections. So as Commissioner Marquez Peterson just mentioned, and I'm sorry, Joshua, for your name, Polachek, Mr. Polachek, Mojave County may not have liked that gas plant, but they also put a hiatus and a moratorium on solar panels because they got inundated with them. So again, taking a step back into the role of the Corporation Commission, that's not our sandbox. That is for the local communities, the local cities, the local planning and zonings in the counties, for them to decide where they want it. La Paz County, who neighbors next to them, said, hey, you didn't want to go into Mojave? Come on over here. We have no problems with a solar array coming to our county. So that's for the communities to decide. That's why we don't get involved in that stuff. We need to have the public planning and zonings, the local public involvement. And again, the commission is very involved in that. Again, we ran into that in the city of Chandler. We had a couple times when the utilities tried running roughshod over us, and we went before the commission in order to hold them accountable. So we need to make sure, again, the community has that voice.
And Ms. Aguilar, you spoke specifically about smaller communities too. How would you like to respond? You have a minute.
Yes, I would like to answer both questions. So I travel the state advocating for clean air. We are one of the 5th Maricopa County and Pima County with the most contamination pollution in the country. And Commissioner Marcus Peterson did mention the clean car standards. A lot of those investments are federal investments. I think the corporation has the responsibility to and plays a big role, and we can with the expansion of renewables. And I think that is a direction that we can head in. We all deserve clean air. Like, I work on ensuring like school districts are getting electric school buses, and I travel throughout our state. And what I hear from rural small communities is that they don't have a voice, that people don't come out to them and ask them these questions. There's a lack of access of information. There's a lack of like understanding how they can even access these boards and these individuals. So no, like, I don't believe that these communities understand how to even address these issues with the leaders. There's like a lack of access.
Okay. Ms. Walden, I want to ask you about, from a communication standpoint, whether that's rural or in-house or closer to Maricopa County, do you feel like there is a feeling that the public is really being heard by the commission?
Yeah, they'll do a year of public hearings, but I want to also address the clean air and the renewables. I haven't had the chance to do that yet. Okay. I mean, the 3 Republican candidates, we've visited the smallest utility in the whole state over in Duncan Valley, and then visited the 2nd smallest utility. And we talk about the rural communities, and yeah, they don't have the growth and they don't have the income that Maricopa County has. And what we hear from them is they don't want their coal plants shut. And we started off this panel talking about costs and historical costs that we're paying back. But what I've heard about renewables is that we have to invest more, we have to spend more, we have to buy more batteries. So which is it? Which is it going to be? Now, we've spent tons of money on renewables. Worldwide, it's been $4 trillion in subsidies for renewable energy, and it hasn't made a dent. We still rely on fossil fuels just the same. All that's happened is that we have 2 energy markets. We have a renewable market and we have a fossil fuel market. The battery plants are using coal plants to keep them running. They're using diesel generators to keep the batteries cool. All the solar products are manufactured, most of them are manufactured in China, where they're building 300 more coal plants in order to meet that manufacturing demand.
Thank you. Mr. Polachek, you were shaking your head. I'll give you 30 seconds.
No, I mean, I just I just want to ask the Arizona voters, you have an opportunity to have energy independence and energy security in your own home. Do you want a corporation commission that's going to get down onto your bill and force you to pay interconnect fees so that you, when you're trying to have that energy security and that price stability for your own family budget, the Corporation Commission comes in and says, you don't have a choice, you have to be paying these interconnect fees and subsidize the profits of APS and TEP. That's just not right.
So short form answer for each of you, same question, short 30-second answer. If you were to prioritize energy sources, where do we need to prioritize? I'm going to start with you, Ms. Walden, 30 seconds.
So I don't think it's the role of the commission to prioritize energy sources. And we're talking about costs. That's the biggest thing. We started this out saying, okay, what does your wallet look like? If we make a mandate, by law, the utilities get to recoup the cost of that mandate with the rate of return. That goes directly to the ratepayer. The commission can't override that because the regulatory law code says that they get to recoup that. So we don't want to make mandates. We don't want to be a 4th branch of government. We want the market and them to go out and say, okay, what are the sources of generation that are available to us so we can determine and look at what's the cheapest option. We also have to factor in reliability and safety of the grid. We are not going to get reliability with a 100% renewable portfolio. It has not happened. It's never happened.
So right down the line,
Sure.
What would you prioritize?
The commission shouldn't be picking winners and losers, and the current commission is. The current commission is providing an incentive to the utilities to build new fossil fuel infrastructure that you're going to be paying for decades to come. Now, We're hearing misinformation on the other side. A $4 trillion subsidy since renewables have come on the market decades ago. There's a $4 trillion a year subsidy to fossil fuels. Arizona has a chance to achieve energy independence, to achieve affordable, reliable, and secure energy for everybody in this state. We know that the large companies, when they come in, they know it's more affordable, it's more reliable to have a 100% clean energy portfolio. We're also lucky enough to have Palo Verde providing that base load. We don't need to get to 100%, we just need to get to 73%.
Ms. Marquez Peterson.
I think a priority, if we were to rank these, needs to not be the type of resource, but what it provides. So it needs to be reliable energy, provide that source that's going to manage our baseload as well as the peak times that we need energy. It needs to be the most affordable rate. It needs to provide that diversity. It needs to not be impacted by supply chain challenges we're facing, as we are with many different types of sources. It needs to be embraced by the community and something that can be built and that the community, businesses and otherwise, are participating in. I think there are factors like that that are part of the all-source request for proposal that Ms. Walden discussed, is how we need to prioritize energy resources for Arizona.
Do you have a priority?
Yeah, so, and again, I ask this a lot in that being a nuclear engineer, right, if nuclear power is my priority. I think that is something that the federal government needs to be involved in and expanding upon, because the small modular reactors, I think, is a very good avenue we need to be pursuing. But again, as the corporation commissioner, I follow in suit with what Commissioner Marquez Peterson just said. We need to be looking at those balanced approaches: reliability, affordability, and the long-term investments that are being made. And that's what we said. I don't know. Our opponents keep on talking about how we're anti-solar or anti-solar. We just mentioned that solar is one of the portfolio options we need, along with it all, because that's how we keep things affordable and reliable. If you try to eliminate any one of them, again, it's to your detriment, and we wind up like California.
Mr. Hill?
So I think the priority is not so much picking what type of generating capacity. I think it's making sure that no one has the thumb on their scale when it comes to the competition. So multiple people have mentioned these requests for proposals from the utility companies for generating capacity. Unfortunately, a lot of the times they have little requirements in them that push it towards fossil fuel sources. So what the commission does need to do is it needs to prioritize making sure the competition is fair, it's a level playing field, and then I believe that renewables in most applications will win.
Ms. Aguilar, 30 seconds, please.
Yes, thank you. So I would say I would rephrase that question. We need to prioritize the ratepayer and what is right for the ratepayer. And our main responsibility is to ensure that we are providing a safe, reliable grid. And what does that look like? And how do we get to the lowest cost possible for them? Because this is what we're elected to do. So I do think that what Jonathan and the rest of the panelists have mentioned, like, there is a responsibility and there is an all of the above approach, but we have to do what costs the less because that's what we're elected to do.
Ms. Walden, we will have yes or no question on this one. We have about 2 minutes total for those to respond. Do you think it's important that someone running for the Corporation Commission have some sort of expertise, whether it's in corporations or energy or something like that? Yes or no with a few seconds.
So I think that because the commission's roles are so broad that there's a variety of background people can have. Like, we didn't even talk about the water utilities or even the security and investment fraud that the commission gets involved in.
Thank you. Mr. Polachek?
I believe that the commission is elected to represent the citizens. And our job is to be your voice as citizens on the commission.
Okay, Ms. Marquez Peterson.
I believe we're representative of the ratepayer. We don't need specific expertise, but we're really bringing our life experiences to this position to represent the ratepayer in the very best possible way.
Down the line, sir.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. I mean, we're here to represent the ratepayer set by the Constitution. Experience, we all can bring our own background and specifics, but experience in politics does help, and experience in running utilities helps.
Okay, Mr. Hill.
I think technical experience is critical. Everyone on this stage can be an effective advocate for ratepayers. You need commissioners who can bring additional skills to the table.
Ms. Aguilar, just a few seconds, please.
Yes, I have water experience on top of leading experience on other boards, but I do think that the most important experience I have is the voice of the people, and that is what I'm going to bring to the table.
The hour has gone quickly, so it is time for your closing statements. Now, each one of you will have 1 minute, and to keep us on time as we have, we will politely cut you off if you start to run over. So, Ms. Aguilar, you do have the first closing statement. You have 1 minute.
Arizona, you have heard from me and my opponents, and I urge you to vote for what is right for your family. And if you want to continue on the same trajectory, please vote for me, Ilenia Aguilar, and the Democrats if you want to see a change, if you want your rates lower, because we've seen what the other previous corporation Republican commissions have promised and not delivered. Thank you.
Mr. Polachek, you have 1 minute for your closing statement.
I appreciate that. I'd like to end, well, first, thank the moderators, thank the voters for listening. I would have loved, because I see the elections in the background, that we at least had one question about whether everyone on the stage believes that Arizona elections have been free and fair over the last couple of cycles. Would have been a great question. I'm not sure everyone on the stage agrees with it. I'd like to end with this story. I was in Peoria with Renee and Jonathan for a voter engagement event, bipartisan event, and talking about, returning the Corporation Commission to its constitutional duties of affordability, reliability, and security to the ratepayers. And Leah was there as well. And they had their pop-ups, and the top line of their pop-up was affordability. Talking to a voter, and she said, look, my rates have just been going up and up and up. And at the end of that conversation I had with her, talked a little bit about my national security background, put her hand out to me, said, can I shake your hand, sir? I said, of course. She said, I'm a red-ribbed conservative, never voted for a Democrat before in my entire life. But after the conversation that we've just had, you, Jonathan, and Ilenia have my vote. So thank you very much, and thank you to all the voters who are watching tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Marquez Peterson.
Yeah, thank you again for hosting this important event tonight. I think the contrast can't be more clear between the Republican candidates and the Democrat candidates. I think the Democrats have posed today a position that's not realistic. We as the Republican slate, myself as an existing commissioner, have fought to have affordable utility rates. I'm proud to have cut more than $200 million from the APS rate case recently. I'm proud of the $40 million rebates that I provided to TEP and APS customers. I have a voting record. I suggest ratepayers check that out. Look at my background at voteforleah.com. I would appreciate your support in this upcoming election.
Rachel Walden, you have the next closing statement. 1 minute.
Hi. So thank you for tuning in tonight, and you can learn more about me at my website, electrachelwalden.com. My email address is up there. You can email me. I'll give you my cell phone. We can have a conversation and talk more about this. I think everyone can tell I'm very passionate, and I'm passionate about the future of this state. What we've seen in our rates, what we've seen in the cost, is the result of forced mandates, forced contracts, government regulation, and subsidies that have driven up the rates. And now we're in a time of record inflation, and a lot of those bills are coming due. The current commission is getting it done. They are cutting back subsidies. They're repealing those mandates. I want to be part of that work, that we make sure that we're upholding the Constitution that says that you only pay a just and a reasonable rate, and I have the right financial and business experience to make sure that that happens.
Mr. Rene Lopez.
Yes, hello. Thank you again for the opportunity. And as I said, I have experience in running the 4th largest water district. We, again, in City of Chandler, we're very cost effective. And look, it's government. It's ineffective. It's inefficient. But what we can do is make sure that we're fighting for the ratepayers out there. Look, Arizona is the 49th cheapest energy rate. And if you have politicians telling you and promising you they're going to save you money, be careful, because inflation is going up. The federal government has a lot of control over our wallets also. And the utility rates aren't just controlled by the Arizona Corporation Commission. It's a global energy market. So we need to ensure that we're doing what's best for you, the ratepayer, and we are fighting for you, which Rachel Walden, Leah Marquez Peterson, and Renee Lopez will.
Jonathan Hill, you have the final closing statement. 1 minute, please.
I think Arizonans need to ask themselves, do they feel like the Corporation Commission is on their side? Do they feel like the Corporation Commission is protecting their hard-earned money? Do they feel like the Corporation Commission is listening to them and hearing their voices? I think the answer is no. And so personally, I'm not approaching this race as a politician. I'm not trying to go one party or the other. I'm approaching it as an engineer and a geologist. Let's find real solutions to our problems, and let's make sure that our water, our power, our natural gas are safe, reliable, and affordable for all Arizonans.
Thank you very much. Now, based on the clock, we have a tiny bit of time, and I do not mean this to be a flippant question at all. It's for each of you, though, and as short as you can make it. Ms. Aguilar, let me start with you. What is it like to run for an office that many people in Arizona have said is the most important job they don't understand?
It is very rewarding and gratifying hearing the stories of Arizonans who are struggling and suffering because of their rate and their utility bills. I'm just honored to hear and to have their trust.
Mr. Hill, very briefly, please.
You know, I've talked to a lot of people. I've heard a lot of people are struggling, and I really hope I have the opportunity to help them.
Mr. Lopez?
Yeah, it's been a great experience running around the entire state. I've loved it. I mean, eyes wide open. I knew it was going to be fun, but this is great. Thank
Ms.
you.
Marcus Peterson?
I've enjoyed speaking to groups across the state also, whether it's chambers, Kiwanis, Rotaries. I think we have a lot of work to do in education, but so appreciative when people pay attention to how utility rates are formed.
Okay, Mr. Polachek?
Well, I have to say the one thing that we haven't talked about tonight that really breaks my heart as someone who grew up on Indian reservations is that we still have a large segment of our population here in Arizona that's disconnected from the grid. And when I travel to Navajo, up to Apache, and I hear the stories of the people off the grid, it breaks my heart. And I want to do something to fix that.
Ms. Walden?
I think I put the most campaign miles on my car, 25,000 campaign miles, because I started the first campaigning last May. So it's a lot of work, and it's definitely been eye-opening, but I love Arizona. I think people can tell and feel my passion about this state and about our future when I meet with them. It's definitely not for everybody, though.
Thank you.
Thank all of you for being with us tonight. This wraps today's debate with the candidates for Arizona's Corporation Commission. As a reminder, Arizona's general election is Tuesday, November 5th, and early voting starts Wednesday, October 9th. There are a lot of offices up for election this year, so we'll keep hosting debates through the fall.
You can head to azmedia.org to see a list of upcoming debates and where you can find them on TV, radio, and digital platforms provided by our local media partners. For the full debate schedule and to even submit questions for future debates, we invite you to head to azcleanelections.gov. On behalf of our partners at Clean Elections, the Arizona Media Association, Reestern Bitfire Studios, we thank you for joining us.